Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I guess we're all about to recover from a hangover after the previous session, and we're going to continue the trend. We're back with another power-packed session. Ladies and gentlemen, our speakers here might belong to different spheres of the industry, but they are united by one need to connect with the customers, identify the trends and also the customer needs. They are the marketers who also specialize in the art of listening. We're talking about social media analytics, metric that matters. Well, that's the key focus for this evening. When we talk about social media, it is obvious that I have to first introduce our session chair and speaker, Snehija Mehta, who comes with 12 years of experience across media, FMCG and financial services brands, functional expertise in customer strategy, brand and communication development, media planning, e-commerce and social media. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome on stage the Head Client Solutions, Facebook India, Ms. Snehija Mehta. And on that note, it's also time to invite on stage our next speaker. Well, we're talking about social media. We've spoken about Facebook. It's time to introduce our next speaker, who's the Industry Manager India for Twitter, Mr. Anupam Dixit. Can we have a huge round of applause to welcome Mr. Anupam Dixit? As Twitter's first industry manager in India, Mr. Anupam is responsible for providing support for Indian advertising campaigns that's leveraging and also leveraging the company's platform for live public conversations, as well as working with industry-leading marketers to increase the engagement with their customers on Twitter. Moving on, it's also time to invite our next wonderful speaker. When we think about holidays, it is obvious we think about Mahindra Holidays and Resorts. Let's have a huge round of applause to welcome the Chief Marketing Officer of Mahindra Holidays and Resorts, Ms. Deepali Nair. She comes with 2 decades of experience behind her, and having started her career with Tata Motors, followed by BPL Mobile, and she's also worked in advertising as strategic planner at Draft FCB Ulka, and then joined Marico as a marketing manager for Saffola as well as Medica. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our next eminent speaker, who's responsible for driving the growth of Millward Brown's media and digital practice across the IAMAI region. Can we have a warm round of applause for Mr. Mark Henning, Head of Media and Digital IAMAI, Millward Brown. Well, that brings us to our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen. We're joined by a digital and social media evangelist, a corporate speaker and a trainer who comes with 17 years of holistic experience in the marketing domain. In fact, she's also been a source of inspiration for many young guns and the brain behind digital success stories from many blue chip accounts across India as well as global. Can we have a warm round of applause to welcome Deepa Sayal, Director and Co-founder, ADG Online. And moving on to our final speaker, who comes with 14 years of diversified vertical experience. In fact, at Value First Digital Media, he heads the global marketing and social media practice along with overall communication initiatives of the brand Value First and its customers. A warm round of applause to welcome Mr. Aroon Kumar, Head Marketing and Social Media, Value First. And I think this is the first time we're seeing a lot of uniformity and unity and diversity. We've got 3 of the beautiful ladies here and 3 gentlemen. So let's have a huge round of applause. Another power-packed session for all of you in store. And with that, I'd like to hand over the proceedings to our moderator and speaker, Ms. Snehija Mehta. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I think that introduction was probably more than I knew about myself too. I mean, I didn't know all of that was out there. Okay, let's start with probably a round of questions for this audience here. How many of you were here last year? I see some 10 odd people. The year before that? Okay, 10 odd people again. So in a way it's good. I think what I'm trying to drive is a large point, and all of us have heard this. Social media as the next big thing has now been in conversation probably for the last 5 years, 10 years, 8 years. Attached to that is obviously this huge adage of how do you measure social media. That's also been around for a very long time. And I think for people who've already been here or at other IAMAI sessions, you've witnessed enough panels that have a discussion around it. I think this panel today, and with my role here, we just want to shake things up a little bit. Let's just ask some very hard-hitting questions. Let's first get down to asking, I'm from Facebook. We talk about we are more than 100 million people on this platform. Are we really social, or are we probably what you call as your traditional media platforms as of today? Add to that a Twitter, a LinkedIn, a YouTube, and you probably have this largest network of reach platforms that you would have. So I think we'll take it right head on. We will ask questions around, are we really social? Are we the next big reach platform to talk about? And is measurement something that we have overly analyzed? Is that a big elephant in the room which has been spoken about so much, but we don't have clear answers yet? So with that, I think I want to start with Dipali. Some quick thoughts on, what's your view on this?
So I think the whole journey and the discussion context on social started really 6 years ago, according to me. And I just want to share with you in the context of analytics and what we do at Club Mahindra, which is relevant. I think we clearly, identified that social plays two roles in our marketing and the organizational mix, if I may use the term. One is the listening and what I call the customer service aspect of it. 50% of our customers, we have 1.75 lakh members, and 50 to 60% of them are on social media, and they talk to us on social media. So we have a very, very evolved listening mechanism, which involves the social media team within marketing, which involves a social media agency, also involves our resorts, also involves our member relations team, and the usage of CRM. I think there is no data and analytics and last mile linkage that we don't have. And there is pretty much every data that's available to us in terms of what is the cause for trouble, resolutions, and the kind of comments and stuff like that. We even do inciting from that to actually improve our processes. If you're sitting at a resort and if you want something in your room and if you happen to put it on Twitter, chances are within a few hours the resort manager will get to you and do it. And some of these processes, it has been the intent and the will that has made that happen, and not necessarily technology and automation. So some of these processes are still run on email. It is, yes, manually, very, very crowded, but it happens. So that's one part of the story which seems to be perfect for us in terms of how to listen, how to get things done on social. The second part, which is the brand engagement part, and let's say the acquisition part, which is the holy grail for us. I think that's where the data and the analytics stops at a point. And our point of view is that we are able to measure influence, we are able to measure surrogates, which in the world of advertising nobody asks. But I think when it comes to digital, because we've educated our boards and we've educated our chairman and we've educated the world at large to measure everything in digital. Therefore, on social media also, people are asking the questions saying, how do you attribute it to conversion and how do you attribute it to sales? I think that is where the divide ends, because you can only measure influence in terms of surrogates and not to the sales.
Thanks, Dipali. So if I take away from what you just said, social media really is that platform today that's driving business metrics for you. That's really the most measured medium for you as of today. Is that how it is?
No, I think in the space of digital and even the offline marketing spends that we have, we measure everything on digital far more, so the performance part of the business, in fact, social we measure less. But when it comes to Google, SEM, display part of the advertising there, I think the metrics are far stronger and the data analytics is far stronger. Yes, of course, we suffer from the so-called last-click attribution issue, which is why we stay committed to social media, which is why we are willing to live with the surrogate measures. But there, I think the attribution and the linkages are far stronger.
Great. I'll move on to you, Anupam. So you're purely, you come from really the domain which is defined as social. How do you manage questions about what should be measured on social? Let's just start with some initial thoughts on that.
Sure. So let me just give a sense of scale of data that we're talking about right now. So, a lot of people call Twitter a startup. I think it's definitely a startup, but it's an analytics startup, right? All we do is about data. So there are about 500 million tweets that happen on the platform on a daily basis. That's about 1 billion in every 2 days. So just sort of absorb that volume for a minute and think about the scale that we're talking about. At 500 million tweets a day, it's insane, right? That's the amount of data that's possibly coming on a platform. Each tweet is also an action of intent. So it gives an actionable point which a marketer like Dipali can possibly work on and use it to either identify which resort somebody needs a service in, somebody wants to go somewhere, etc. And this applies across, right? It's all pervasive, it's live, it's real time, and it's widely distributed. Now with that context, when you see data, it's not denying that in terms of sheer volume, social is definitely defining how data has been consumed so far and will possibly be consumed going forward. What it also necessitates is that we need adequate tools. platforms, even resources, right? A big question that comes up is, I have this fancy social listening tool that I've set up, but how do I make the most use of this? And collaboration. Another thing that I hear a lot, and I can also tell you from my previous role, was that chances are in the same company, each department would have their own tool. They're all listening to the same thing, being spoken about by the same user. So what essentially boils down to is, yes, there's data. Yes, you can listen to it. Yes, you can make sense of it. But are you equipped? Are you prepared? Are you ready to make sense of it at a more fundamental level within the organizations that you're working? And I think that's the bigger question. That's the thing that we need to figure out.
So let's bring it out to one key question that you get asked. I mean, because there was a lot of things that you just mentioned, and there's a span of measurement objectives. But the one key ask that you hear from advertisers when it comes to measurement and measurement on social.
So honestly, there's no one key ask. I think what we've also gone out and done, and I think partly all of us here are equally to blame for this, is that we've just gone out and used metrics as a way of getting people on board to the platform, right? Social is no longer the cool folks in the party. Social is the party, right? The party is happening here, right? 6 or 7 years back, when you asked if people were there in the room, I think if you look back 6 or 7 years ago, when we used to map out a day in the life of a consumer, it used to be one medium at a time, right? So you wake up, you read the newspaper, you're going to work, you listen to the radio, you see the hoarding, you get to office, you check your mail, you come back again, the same thing goes in reverse, and finally there's TV. Now, take all of that, put a layer of social on all of that, right? So it's not something that happens either or, it's happening all the time, right? So I don't think there's one metric. I think what boils down to is, are you clear about what your business metric is, what your business marketing communication objective is? And I'm sure between all of us, we can put together a metric which justifies and helps measure that and arrive at that.
Okay, it's going to be a tough task. And not grilling you further, not putting you on a hot seat. So I'll just move on to Aroon. You know, from your experience at the agency, you have a lot of discussions with clients, and I know that Dipali is one of the clients that you work with very closely. What do you see is the shift in the way that clients are sharing their objectives with as of today? What are the key objectives that they're looking at driving?
People are, the organizations or maybe the brands are moving beyond the count metrics. Say the counting of fans, number of likes, shares. People are moving beyond that. Now they are trying to understand what kind of overall impact or influence the social media initiatives or per se the social media marketing can bring in. Say for example, when we are planning for a couple of clients, say for example Dipali. Now what they are looking for, how you can help us in getting us conversions. So instead of eyeballs, people are looking for actions. And that actions are what? Lead generation, maybe a sale or maybe sales. So when you are thinking of actions, wherein from social media platforms, what exactly is really matters right now is content. Because the kind of a content that we are playing around at the beginning, say for example 2009 and 10.
Aroon, just for a minute, and for the sake of this room, can you please explain what content would mean here?
So when I say content, the content plays the key role wherein it helps you to get the right kind of, apart from eyeballs, the interest. Say for example, the content needs to be really contextual.
So it would be the creative.
No, I'm talking of the right curation, whether it is creative or whether it is the right kind of curation for the teaching.
Sure.
So the right content or maybe the right kind of content curation is the key to your social media success. So hence, whether your content is generating enough leads for you or maybe certain kind of interest, whether you are getting converted or maybe loyal customers, that will be decided by the right kind of content curation.
Great. So I think largely what you're saying is you're aligned to where Dipali started from. Both agencies feel as well as clients are moving away from the context of just the social currency. We're not really talking just about likes, comments, shares, and that's actually music to my ears at this point in time. Mark, coming to you, from a measurement angle, you're I think the expert in this room.
Before to that, I want to just add one point.
Sorry.
I think you are forcing us to definitely focus on engagement because you have completely controlled the reach.
Yes.
So
I
we
knew
don't
that
have
was
anything
something
else.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'll answer that maybe at some stage, but I'll move on to Mark right now.
We're still all about engagement.
Yeah.
I think you're the one who started about, the reach of the platform. So we'll come to that too. And this time, no one's taking the mic away from you, Mark. You're the expert in this room when it comes to measurement, and to a great extent, be it any medium, research has always defined what should we measure. Somehow we feel, the larger research agencies, and at least from an India context, have still been playing it very slow. We don't see, the key research agencies come out and say, this is what we feel you should be measuring from a research context. Do you think that's changing in India? Do you, from your understanding globally, feel that there are certain things that India needs to learn from a social angle?
I think there's a few key themes that have already been talked about that I'm going to pick up on in answering that question. I think first and foremost it comes down to what's the objective. And if you want to broadly base objectives into two key areas in this space, one will be direct response. I want to get an action straight away. I want a customer to sign up, whether it be for a holiday or a credit card or whatever it happens to be. I want that to happen. Okay. The second part of it is a brand objective. I want to change the way someone feels about my brand. I want to make them more aware of my brand, and how do I measure that? And the type of metrics we need to use in that environment are very different. Yes. Okay, so some of the behavioural metrics we can use are fantastic for that direct response kind of thing, because you can see there's a direct response, there's an action, someone's clicked on a website or someone has actually placed an order, that sort of thing. So really good measurement around that. Yes, it gets caught up with last click attribution, so it can still be improved, but there are some good, solid, hard metrics that play in that space. I think because it's harder and it's probably a more soft measure, the brand side of things is an area that I think has been left behind, and what's the impact on the brand, and it's a lot harder to do. We're an industry where there are numbers everywhere and metrics everywhere, but a lot of those metrics are those behavioural-based metrics, and they don't actually translate into a brand impact necessarily. Sometimes they may.
That's a very interesting point that you make. It's a softer aspect, of course, and you spoke about brand engagement initially, but it's not like that cannot be measured. If we're talking today and if you're saying that these are actually large reach mediums as well, is it possible for your brand engagement campaign to measure awareness, to measure consideration? That's just probably that Facebook or YouTube or a Twitter is driving for you. Do you still not see clients going ahead and believing that that's something that can be measured? And I don't know too many clients who are really even thinking about using those brand metrics as a measurement metric on social.
Yeah. I don't think there's enough of it, absolutely, and we do a lot of studies trying to understand that. So you talked about the growing reach of Facebook and social and those sort of metrics. We see that TV is a great reach medium, and people spend a lot of their budgets on TV, but what we see is it drives really good brand awareness, but it's an expensive way to drive brand imagery and change brand attributes and also drive consideration towards the brand. Okay, but what we are seeing is that some of the digital media, because of the higher engagement, because people can spend a bit more time with the brand and get involved with the brand, we're seeing them do a very good and very efficient job in terms of driving those imagery and brand attributes and also driving that consideration. So working together with those, and we're also seeing rapid growth in that digital space. So that reach component, while is still not equivalent to TV, it is certainly growing up and growing up very rapidly. So there is a really good story around the social and digital environments and their ability to influence brand metrics. Too often we see people using the behavioural metrics as a proxy for the brand without any real understanding of does it really work or does it not really work in that environment. And I think that's something that we need to educate marketers on and get them involved in understanding how that works.
That's great.
So I want to add something here. I think if you're going to look at social or digital only as a reach medium for the brand engagement aspect, then you're looking really at digital being a part of the media mix. Then you're not doing more. Then I don't think you're doing justice to the medium. Then all the conversation that happens in fancy technical journals about doing micro-segmentation and being able to reach a segment size of one person is useless. And let's not do those conversations. Because the reality today is, and this is for publishers and agencies, that even if I give a very, very sharp brief to an agency to say I want to reach mothers whose children are in the X age group and they should have done one international and one domestic holiday last year, I'm not able to get that audience from anywhere, whether it is the social reach, large, medium, or whether it is any of the display campaigns that we have. So, when we're talking about, measuring, we go back then to the way traditional media is measured as far as the brand engagement is concerned. If that be the case, at best digital can hope to get a share from print or, or outdoor in the current context. And I myself have done campaigns where, I've sacrificed outdoor and put the money on digital because I think it will serve the purpose better. But then you're talking about marginality, because then you need to have internet penetration going up to 50 or 60%, and then we are talking, the real numbers over there. But I don't think that's a fair way to go. I think e-tailers perhaps are the most in an advantageous position to connect all the measurement pieces. And if you are a person like us, where average ticket size is about, 3,50,000 rupees, then, we do a lot of our work offline, and in which case I can't afford for it to be just a reach medium. Then it'll always play a marginal role in my context.
Dipali, we'll come back to this point because I think it's an interesting segue. We're talking about reach, but we're also talking about, does it still give me the capability to do the same kind of micro-targeting that ideally I want social to lend? We'll come back to that, but just on the point that you made about behavioral measurement, and I just wanted Deepa to share her comments on social listening is still going to stay. We want to use a lot of analytics from this platform and keep using that, going back into brand insights and how brands can target better. What are the one or two changes that you've seen over the span of the last 12 to 18 months in this area?
Stehi, this is a very interesting question, and as somebody who's been associated with social media for almost like 8 years, I see things changing in a very, very big way in the next 5 years. So yesterday, the gentleman asked a question about predictive analytics, and they said this is not related. But I want to tell you, firstly, in simplistic terminologies, for people who don't know social listening, it is understanding your consumers, having real-time conversation with them, doing diagonal conversations with them. So where it's coming from is that, going forward, we're going to have a lot of PA coming in, which is predictive analytics. We'll have Internet of Things, so presence of IPs in the, in the internet space, and a lot of data getting into it. And data would be seen as a major component where CIOs and CEOs are concerned to take larger decisions in a different format altogether. So that is the third thing that I'd say is, if anybody here is familiar with iBeacons, so that's also going to be a very, very big opportunity in 2015 and 2016, and people are going to comprehend it in a different way and different marketing output coming in. Things are going to change in a very, very big way as I see going forward. These three major things. So when I say Internet of Things, iBeacons, and PA, predictive analytics would hold the key.
I think you had a point to there.
So when you say data, right now what is happening, every action on social sites like yours and Anupam's and there must be Nissan. So all they are data. So how you are going to analyze those data to understand those insights which will compel you to take some action. So rather than insight, we can call it actionable insights. Like a way ahead, like Deepa is sharing PA, predictive analysis. So data is everywhere. But how to analyze that and which data is important to you as for the objective of your brand, that will hold the key to all of those data part when you talk of data in social media.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah, please, and I would like to
I
add
think
to
we're
that
just
as well.
starting off really, and while there are these huge numbers that get thrown around, I just threw one myself. But honestly, I think we're just at the cusp. Just imagine the possibility when you start combining social data with, say, shopper data, right? There are a lot of companies doing that. Deepa mentioned iBeacons, right? Now, look at offline, the volume of transaction that happen. E-com is still nowhere close to that in India. Now, if you look at the possibility of saying, go to one of large retail formats, take their till information, start mapping that against the social information, you can actually end up predicting what the user is going to buy next. I was reading somewhere that Tesco can tell when somebody is pregnant. Because they can just track that. You track your shopper behavior and see what you've been purchasing over the last 1-2 months, and they can actually tell you, hey, this person's pregnant and she's going to come and buy this, or she's going to order this. Yeah, that's the possibility, right? That's your predictive analysis, and you take in. Right now we're just talking about user actions. Take user actions, combine it with machine actions or user actions in the offline world, and just this is going to blow out of the stratosphere.
Sure. I feel somewhere there, right from tracking what should we track at an output stage, we've gone back to probably analyzing what do we really want to what we want to start with. If you're really still talking about, to your question about micro-targeting, How are we using the data that's available on the platforms as of today to sharpen targeting? And very honestly, I want to put that question back to you. Sorry. I'll just make my point, and then maybe Aroon can take that question, and Deepa, if you could follow. And this is my personal experience. When I speak to agencies, I get these questions a lot, especially in large forums on we want insights on when someone came, how many minutes they viewed. Yes, some of that is available, some of that we can't share. I think my one base request is, are we already still using 100% of what's available? And sorry, my sense is we're not completely using the potential of the existing capabilities that's open to agencies as of today. And Aroon, from your point of view, because you're talking to advertisers who clearly want you to deliver business metrics, what's your view on it? What are you doing to ensure on a capability side that agencies are completely ramped up to understanding the existing potential of insights and how you're leveraging that?
So we are trying, right now what we are doing is we are investing heavily on our data capabilities. We are trying to get the right resource from the market, tools, analytics tools, and just me and Mark were having a conversation. We are highly utilizing or using their analytics and their market research in terms of social media engagement for our clients. Apart from that thing, we are trying to understand the user behavior. Though we are talking of predictive analytics, we don't know what exactly when the user is trying to move his cursor around something, what is going on in his mind. So now we are just trying to rely on the analytics, the algorithm. So we also really need to understand the human side of the user. When the data is being captured, we also need to understand what is going on in the person who is really playing around with your site, or maybe your content, or maybe whatever the engagement activities that you are planning.
Sure. Mark, you were right.
Just got to comment on that, and we're talking about, we go back to that point where we do have a lot of data, okay, and so what are we doing with that and how are we analysing that and that sort of thing. When we have that lot of data, we tend to have a lot of that data sitting in silos. And I think you made the point earlier about, well, that's great. I can now understand, well, how's my Facebook strategy working? Is it working? I'm getting great response from my Facebook strategy. How's my Twitter strategy working? Yes, it's working great. I'm getting great response. How are they working together? We have no idea, okay, because we're not able to link the elements,
and
let alone linking with our traditional media, which is still a major part of the way we're communicating with our customers. So I think the changes we're going to start seeing is people thinking not so much in the individual silos, oh, I've got a mobile strategy, I've got a Twitter strategy, I've got a Facebook strategy, etc. It's, I've got a brand strategy, okay? How am I going to grow that brand? What's the right way for me to communicate the messages that I want to communicate the brand? What's the target audience and how do they want to receive that? Do they want to participate in a conversation with me or not? What opportunities can I create that actually gives that? And that's not really about utilising a heap of the data and the metrics that we've got. It's actually going back to what's the strategy for the brand, how are we going to do that, and then let's see whether we've got data that can actually measure whether we've been effective at doing that or not, rather than thinking about what can we measure in the data.
Mark, I think you just hit the nail on the point. And I think it's an obvious statement that the discussion in the boardroom is not about what's coming through digital and what's coming through print television. To some extent it is, obviously, when budget allocations do happen. There is. But I think a larger piece of what he's trying to say is eventually there is a business objective. And at some point in time, we want to become sophisticated to understand attribution as to what came from where. And I just want to, take this a little ahead with you, because I do understand that Miller Brown already has discussions in the market, which research pieces in the market which span across medium. You do cross-media studies, yes, which are exactly out there to help you understand the efficacy, of each platform. Just like a quick brief, of how that is helping change conversations. How is that helping marketeers look at the whole piece in one consolidated view?
Yeah, well, it's worth pointing out that those solutions come at it from a brand point of view. So it's not really trying to measure the impact on sales. It's not really trying to measure the impact on a direct response metric, things like that. It's trying to measure how is my media strategy impacting my brand. And I guess what we do is we start looking at how we can pull apart a media strategy and look at the roles that the media are playing. Are they playing that role in isolation, or are they bouncing off each other and giving us a media multiplier effect and things like that? And I guess very top line, some of the things that we're seeing, and I'll narrow the discussion down to TV and digital media, I guess, is probably a really good area to start. But TV we're seeing, and this is across the world, we're seeing takes up the majority of spend, drives the majority of reach, but can be inefficient when you're talking about lower funnel metrics, all right? Because we spend too much on TV. We spend way past the point where it's finished doing the job that it's possible it's going to do in the time frame that we've set it, okay? And it's because we're so comfortable with TV, we've used it for years and that sort of thing, all right? So from a digital point of view, what we're seeing, and as I mentioned before, we're seeing stronger impacts on brand attributes and consideration kind of metrics. We're seeing very cost-efficient impact on that. We are seeing increasing reach over time, but there's a lot of things we need to learn about how to do it because we can have a negative effect in that space. So we've got to be really mindful of how we behave in that space. And I think the mobile phone is a real game changer on that front, is we can't just be preaching to people and talking to people. We need to almost invite them in, put it in the right context for them, get them thinking about that, and that's where we find success. So I think that we're going to see every media become digitised and give opportunities for them to work alongside each other and things like that. So I think that's something that's coming as well.
I think I just want to reinforce Aroon's point here to what you said. It's not just about, it can even do a lot more harm. And Aroon initially made this point of curation of content and curation of communication. I think that will go a long way in really ensuring what piece of the funnel is it really changing for you. And I think that was a very well-made point.
So, I just want to give you an example of what we do with our members, and I wish we could do it with our prospects, okay? So members' data, exactly how they holiday, where do they holiday, who they are, we know that, okay? The reach out to them, whether on email, whether on phone, SMS, or even when they are inside our website because we know exactly who he is. We are today able to run about 40 segments every quarter, which change every quarter too. With about just 1.75 lakh members, we do 40 segments. And we are able to offer choices to them depending on what they did earlier. Okay? We are able to reshape 20% of the demand that they make of us. We are actually able to influence to get them to holiday in off-peak times, during weekdays, and off-peak resorts. So that's a business target that we have, that we must have greater utilization of the non-peak times. Now, the whole control and the data and the example that you mentioned about Tesco, now all this analytics and campaign planning and conversion and closure is happening within my ecosystem. And I have that data across platforms in a manner of speaking, therefore, where I'm able to do this in a certain context. There are two things that I want as in terms of being a holy grail for a marketeer. Either tell me more about my members through Facebook or Twitter or wherever so that I have even greater knowledge about them and are able to do a much better job.
I'm meeting you on Monday.
Right? Or can you tell me this about the prospects? Which, comes back to the older question, very, very simple variables. I want to meet a mother of a 3 to 6 year old child who did one holiday international and one domestic holiday last year. Nobody is able to offer that segment to me. So I call this interestingly internally, although we do a great job on digital and digital conversions and, we are lauded at, everywhere, you're talking conversion rates of under 2% still from whatever you do on the performance side. And I call it spray and pray, but that's what we're doing. So where is the better, targeting matrix being available to us, which is across platforms, across social media channels, the agencies are able to offer to us or publishers are able to offer to us?
I can take that question, but I'll let Anupam go because I know
I'll just add to that. Now, we've been speaking about social or analytics and measurement, etc., from a marketing point of view, but there's another dimension which has happened. So earlier in the day, if you had to reach out to one part of the company if you're buying a product. If you had a problem with it, you go to another place, right? It's not the same store. So you go customer service, you go to another place. But with social, what's happened, it's happening at the same place. The same channel from which you promote yourself is also the same place where customers come and talk back to you, right? So that's a critical data point which we need to be capturing. Dipali mentioned, obviously, the fact that reaching out to the right audience. I think it's also critical that we have synergy internally about figuring out what data we're getting from our customer service feeds in that sense, and seeing how we can map it or use it to sort of influence what marketing is happening. Right, just to give an example, so I was meeting a global consumer electronic multinational. They had this entire world marketing summit happening, 137 countries, marketing heads of all those 137 countries. This their global marketing had a question that, how many of you are aware of what your customer service counterpart is doing? Just one, right? So that is just reflective of the silos in which data is sitting on and the amount of insights that you can glean from existing information, right? You talk about measurement in terms of figuring out how it fits within your typical brand funnel. Half of that comes from your CSAT data, right? With satisfaction, awareness, etc. And finally, I mean, if you think about it, look at the issues that people have. Most of it will tell you what you need to market. So if you give the right signals out, chances are you will not end up having those issues. And ultimately, at the end of the day, a company has just two objectives, right? It has to be profitable, which you can achieve in two ways, which is either by reducing costs or by increasing revenue, right? And that's how I think what data really helps us in.
Yeah, and I think it's about creating beautiful experiences for your clients, through action-led strategies. So one by one, step by step, as he mentioned, Aroon, then content is very important. So content is really important when it comes to, building engagement with people, and then knowing where are my customers, how do I engage with them. For example, for one of the brands, we did this campaign wherein they gave us a, let's say cloud score of 40 and above. That's first. Second, what is the engagement percentage of people talking about on the page? How do you judge it like that? That's one part. Then how many people are speaking about you? Are you connecting with your influencers? Who are your influencers? How do you find that? That is one way of looking. That is grade one. Grade two is some other organizations that really upgraded to something called, a CRM tool integrated with a marketing automation tool. Now that's the advanced thing that I'm talking about. First is this that I mentioned. The second one, you may look at it that CRM combined with my marketing automation tool will give me very powerful inferences. And I can actually know who am I talking to and what is my customer's buying cycle or journey. How can I engage in a more healthy way, in a subtle way, step by step. So that is very, very important from a marketer's perspective.
Dipali, I had another question for you, and because you've always at some point in time been with CPG, I understand the business objectives that you have as of today and for a CPG client are very different. In the context of CPG clients, largely we don't see them very, very strongly on digital. We always hear, they're always on panels. There's a lot of discourse that happens around the role that digital plays. But my belief is they're really not out there making those strong investments in digital. From an FMCG perspective, what is really stopping them? Is there something on the measurement side that needs to change? Is there something from a platform perspective that needs to change? What's important to really shift the discussion with them?
No, I think it is a deep root. I mean, I've worked in FMCG, been in advertising also, although stopped being there for 10 years now. But I suspect the belief that advertising works, the belief that brand engagement works, the linkage that long ago some people did the studies which said that, top of mind recall and so on and so forth, works, especially in businesses where frequent transactions matter. I think that belief makes them use digital as a reach medium again. I think that deep-seated belief. Whereas I think the issue in the service industry and the financial services industry is that there has always been, you started on a back foot where you said, okay, does it really work? Does advertising really work? And therefore, digital has taken a great growth over there because you've managed to, link it in a lot of places to actual conversions. However, I also think two things have happened in the last 4 or 5 years. One is that the marketing teams were best placed to manage and help out the customer service teams. In my last role, customer service used to report to me in a previous organization. So we are really talking about organizational structural changes, to the issues that different silos and client sides that we are really talking about. However, to come back, I think because they managed to do that, and also because in a lot of businesses today, a lot of companies, the e-commerce is, being managed by business responsibility lies with the CMO. So therefore, I think they're able to influence and understand that a small portion of even that budget needs to be spent on so-called influence and brand building, and engagement on the digital. So they have a very good mix because I think the faith and the belief, is there. But and yes, you have surrogates. I mean, your search volumes go up, for example. You have, visits to the websites going up. And if you're able to serve right content in the holiday space, we like people to spend a lot of time with us on our website, for example, So you are looking at all those indicators, and you know that this whole combination seems to be working for you. But I would still believe that I think I wish on the listening side, the kind of data and statistics available to us from social media were also available to us on the performance side. If not, better targeting. You know?
And I just wanted to pick up on the first part of your point where you talked about FMCG companies using digital more as a reach media because they can get that and that's all they see. So in terms of how do we change that, I mean, I think the big thing there is no one ever got fired for booking a TV campaign. But if all of a sudden I took 50% of my budget off TV and threw it into digital and it didn't work, that's a very scary prospect, right? And so I think there's a massive fear factor. And so my view is that the digital media and players within that need to demonstrate more and more that a presence in digital is actually having that brand effect and can deliver that brand effect. And I think that's something as an industry we can do better. And I think once that can be proved, that with coupling with continuing to increase the reach, will start to show money coming from FMCG manufacturers to sit there and say, you know what, we can actually do this, build our brand very, very successfully and more cost efficiently in digital media.
And that's, I think, the same point you made initially across studies that you've seen. In terms of reach, maybe TV is still far more effective as of today, but it's really about moving those pieces of the funnel and things like consideration. Digital just seem to be making a far huger dent.
And Sneha, just to add to that, if you think about it, of all verticals out there, I think that digital has helped CPG the most. If you look at other verticals, they always had a DR angle. They always had a way of reaching out to users and getting the data. But CPG, simply because of its sheer reach and the fact that it was not individual data specific, it was always an aggregate, I think digital has really given a boost. I know where you're coming from and I face the same questions, but yeah, I think what I tell them is, look, you would have not known about this guy 5 years back. Now you at least know what's up to.
And if I would like to add one thing, social media listening would definitely contribute to BI, which is business intelligence, and next 3 years will be business intelligence, if you look at the advanced versions. That's first. And don't be surprised if you have chief social media officers and chief listening officers sitting in a gathering from next year onwards. That is the kind of vision we have. So this is going to be important, and it does give you a ballpark. Even a CEO or a CIO cannot ignore the influence social media as a complete entity has.
So Deepa, it looks like we're moving towards the evolution of some new roles, some new organization structures, which also obviously makes me ask, do you also feel some existing roles will become redundant?
I think the top and the bottom of the funnel is going to get, it's going to shorten up. Why? Because now the customer is the new. He's the one who's going to endorse your brand and tell you a direct feedback. The first thing first, the product has to be there can be no, we cannot take, pinch of salt with the product. It has to be really, really good in terms, so you should be bold. The brand should be bold enough to go all out and, speak of in terms of that. So that is one thing that will really, really change the way. So funnel gets reduced and everything gets automated, one touch. You see mobile phones, how they've changed. Steve Jobs showed us the way ahead. So it's one touch now, and I think the agency's role would change. I will not say abolish. I used it the other day. You can nail me. That's a big thing to say. But agencies would be serving as a consultant to brands, and everything is going to get automated. And there'll be so much that you'll have at one-touch interface, whether it is virtual money coming and a different tool every day coming up, and you'll have to be a tool junkie if you have to survive the bandwagon.
Yeah. So again, agreeing with Deepa, agencies will never get vanished. What will happen? They will come into the consulting side, but wherein the trend already has been started in India now. Since last 1 year, we are finding out people are having, say for example, organizations like Deepa's or maybe some of our clients, they are having a large dedicated social media team. But what they are looking for is someone to come and provide from time to time ideas, right. Time to time strategies based on content, the market trend, all of this. So agencies will never get vanished. Rather, they will invest proactively on developing platforms, products, tools, which will be overall at the end will be complementing the overall objective of the organization, what exactly they are expecting from social or maybe digital. Another point that Deepa has mentioned, that chief listening officer. The trend has already been started in Deepali's last organization, wherein they have appointed someone called chief digital officer, who is consisting of CIO and CMO. So that person is, so suddenly digital was primarily being dominated by IT people. From 2010 onwards, suddenly something happened, maybe due to both of you and the Twitter guys, dominance of the media dollars. So the marketing people said, hey, we are the owners of the digital. You just take a back seat. So whenever now we went to the organization for the marketing budget, they said, no, dude, I am not the guy now. You need to get into the CMO. Now suddenly what we are seeing, there is a chief digital officer. Say for example, leading organizations like if anyone is here from ICICI Bank or maybe some of the BFSI segment or maybe say consumer durable segment, people are appointing someone who understands both the sides, the marketing side as well as on the technology side. So CDOs are getting developed now or maybe being appointed now. So the trend is really getting towards digital, the whole ecosystem of advertisement money. I'm sure Deepal will be agreed to it, is getting into digital. Earlier, we used to go and ask, do you have some money for social? Social? What the hell you will do? It is free. So I went to one of the rice exporters in
All
Delhi.
the heads turned to side, yeah.
Yeah. So
Go on.
what he said, social, okay, I want this, and he has lots of big content for the overseas market. He said, okay, I want to do this and that and that. And I said, okay, we'll charge this much of money for annum. He said, come on, dude, social is free. So how come you are charging us money? The same guy is now proactively calling and saying that I want to go full-fledged digital. So it shows that definitely when you talk of ROIs or maybe say metrics, digital is having, without speaking that from the very beginning, you can decide your metrics.
And there's one thing that I like to add. I'm sorry. This is social media plus big data equals to social selling. This is an article that I posted yesterday on my LinkedIn profile. So please, I think this is something that leaves you a thought with and a lot of stuff. But, coming from e-commerce also, I think we haven't touched that aspect, so I'll just briefly. E-commerce is going to be very aggressive because consumer sentiment in India is very, very high. And there's a lot of movement. Every day in the newspaper, you see a new startup. So e-commerce is going to be very big. Can I engage them? Please allow me. So any ideas on any ballparks for next 5 years? What is the e-commerce industry size going to be in India? Anyone? Of course, we are 10 years behind China. That's what, the newspapers say at least. So what is going to be the size of the e-commerce industry next 5 years? It's going to be $100 billion US. It's going to be huge. We're sitting at almost, I think, 14 billion. You'd like to correct me if you know better. So that's one. And what is the size of mobile per se in the next 6 months? How many subscribers are we going to add in India only? I mean, I'm talking about the mobile opportunity for marketers in this hall. 40 million. So this is huge. We're talking, there's a big revolution that awaits us in the next couple of years. For good.
Most of these are smartphones. So most of these are going to be smartphones.
And a lot of them will be on Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one last question for each one of you, but I think I want to leave the room with the thoughts. So before that, I'll just try and sum up, where we have landed from here. I think very beautifully put, Dipali, where you started, and Aroon, you took that ahead. The conversations are clearly changing. Both agencies and clients are not really talking about the social currency purely being likes, shares, comments. You are serious about business, and you're sharing business objectives with agencies, and therefore that's where you evolve. You're shaping up to look at more data. Mark, you also mentioned very beautifully that while there is this whole ROI angle, where there's one part of the business where we can track it down to leads generated, how many consumers came online, how many consumers purchased. For a lot of clients who are still looking at brand building, we do have great measurement studies already in place. And empirically, data has shown that a lot of these studies are actually moving the bottom of the funnel, which has always been a very big challenge for CPG clients. Anupam, something that you want to close with as to my question to you, and that's the last question for all of you. What is that one immediate thing that each one of you in your capacity would want to do to really make this whole measurement puzzle more solvable? Yeah, for us, we would want to graduate into a product-centric company. So services, graduate to a product-centric company, which talks about a very powerful tool that'll go to marketers and say, combine the data and we'll give you insights. So graduating for everybody to a product-centric version is is my priority.
Big focus on analytics. So whatever and whenever we do that, for anything and everything for brands, that it will be completely measured through analytics only. So the engagement ecosystem is completely going to be analytics driven. That's the future.
So I guess I'll put it this way. While most of what we measure matters, I think it's important that what all matters can be measured, right? So I typically ask people when I meet them in meetings is that, tell me what is the one thing that you want to measure. Don't go after measuring 50 metrics because you can't track that on a daily basis. Give me those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things and we'll figure out ways to measure that.
So I think, thankfully there's one more place where the conversations are changing, actually inside the boardroom. So 6 years ago, you used to get a question saying digital what and social what, and you don't get that any longer. You are, they're talking about 2x and 5x, increases from digital as a source of business and so on and so forth. So that's one. But having said that, I think I want to balance this whole optimism that we have here, which is that yes, we will get business insights, we will get consumer insights, and analytics is the way to go. But if the ecosystem doesn't change to offer execution platforms related to those insights, I think it will then, will reduce the velocity or the acceleration of growth 2 years or 3 years down the line. So I think if there are opportunities on the agency side where it should not stop just at consulting, where they should start thinking of actually execution platforms where the insights can be used, and therefore come to solutions to the marketer to say, okay, so I want the change in conversation to say, okay, tell us what your overall brief is, and we will offer you part of the measurement till here. Or rather, somebody comes to me and says, Dipali, do you have 10 segments? Give me only 2, and I will then work, and 2 discrete segments, and I'll give it to them and say, okay, we will show you, what efficiencies can be met and how, conversions are done. And, so I think that's a change in conversation that at least I would like publishers and, agencies to work towards.
So here in the automation platforms will really be, very much essential for you guys.
And just for the basics, sorry, we have been mentioning Facebook and Twitter, no offenses, but we have other platforms like Flipboard. We have other places like Wine. There's a brand that said B2B space. They said we really want to have a different perspective and we want to go all aggressive with Wine. So there are many other tools which can engage in a very, very.
We were being nice to both Anupam and Snehi, but at Club Mahindra we track 107 platforms for our listening. So yeah, there are many other platforms.
Apparently it's not all about Facebook. I've just got 2 thoughts to leave with. One is, whatever metric you're using, make sure it's matched to the objective that you're trying to achieve. And don't start with the metric first, start with the objective first and do it that way. And then secondly is, don't just measure things in silos. And that goes for individual digital platforms as well as digital as its own silo. You have a marketing strategy that is across a range of different platforms and a range of different communication points. Consider them all when you're choosing your metrics.
And maybe if I can close with my perspective on this as well, and without oversimplifying it, I think for me it's really kind of keeping people at the core. It works both ways for us as publishers. We need to continue keeping our platforms very relevant to people who come onto the platform, and that needs to really always be at the core of it. The other people dimension for me is really people who are very instrumental in the whole discussion and decision, whether it's people at the agency, whether it's people who are creating these models. I think it's just important that a lot of this is simplified for them to be even able to plan. I used to be a media planner at some point in time, and it was really simple. I knew reach, I knew frequency, I made a TV plan. At some point in time, it was just muscle memory, I created it, and the industry works like that. So I think even for the set of people there today who are on the desk, creating those media plans, bringing efficiencies to those different segments that you want to operate on, I think we just need to create a far more simpler currency. And like you said, Mark, I think eventually the measurement is falling in place. We are creating an ecosystem that's beautifully shaping up. So I think with that, I just want to keep this, the panel now open to any questions from you.
Yeah, hi. This question probably is for the publishers, the marketers, and even the advertisers. Okay, so we are talking about tracking on the last mile, talking about Internet of the Things and predictive analysis.
We can't hear you.
Are you able to hear me now? Okay, so when we are talking about tracking on the last mile, predictive analysis, okay, what do you all think in the perspective whether the so-called advertisers are really ready to take it? This question actually implies to all the marketers and the publishers.
So completely happy. So I mean, this is an open offer. If somebody can come to me and say, here's ₹1 spend and here's the conversion from this, please let's come and talk to me. I have an internal benchmark. It doesn't even matter whether it's digital, social or something else.
What does marketer thinks? Preferably Deepa or Aroon?
Yeah, so I don't know, but then there's a beautiful book by Eric Siegel, if you've read it. It's called Predictive Analytics. There's a nice chapter in that and says, you won't believe it, that people are predicting stock market movements, by social media, by being on social media blogs, how the stock market is going. This looks impossible, but this is possible. So that is the beauty of PA.
Can I take that?
Good evening.
Yeah, so I'll just try and be very brief in answering that. I think it's just a normal consumer journey. I don't know when was the last time you saw something maybe online and immediately made the purchase. I think we're understanding increasingly the behavior of the consumer online. There's lots of discussion of, I saw it on mobile, I went onto another platform, I again saw it there. So eventually I think the multi-touch attribution does stay. To probably add complexity to it, there's also now multiple devices that people use. So I think very simply put, I think it is here. As publishers, each one of us have our standpoint. But I think clearly from a consumer journey perspective, it's a very realistic, phenomenon that is here to stay, and we are finding answers around how do we attribute each platform to it.
There is one more thing, Sneha, I'd like to add, just to simplify it. Maybe some of us are not familiar. So how it happens is a developer plus a modeler, and the site is yielded to you. I mean, it's given to you the way you want it. So this is like technicality, but most of the people might ask us, how does PA happen and what is it all about? It's simple. It's going to happen.
Yeah, good evening. This is Ajish from UA Exchange India. Basically, my question is that whenever we're talking about the brand, everybody's talking about how many followers is having in the Facebook or in the Twitter. In the Facebook page, as we have seen that getting a followers on the Facebook page is Facebook ads is basically playing an important part for getting as much as likes in a very quick way. Now there is a lot of online post has been going on that the likes which you are getting through Facebook ads is basically a paid likes which is not a genuine like. Basically, it's not a human being. So, as an advertiser, how can we analyze the likes which you are getting through Facebook likes? Is there really a genuine likes or is there fake likes?
That's a Facebook question.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to take that.
Stop chasing the likes.
Let me just answer that
Stop
quickly.
chasing the likes. Please.
Who wants to answer that? I hope you're going to give a favorable answer.
Yeah, I'll cover up for you. See, think about it. If you asked this question 3 years back, I still would have found it relevant. I don't think in the last whatever meeting I've done, nobody's asked me I want likes or followers. I think Facebook's done a great job of re-educating the market. So nobody's talking about it anymore. But no. So thing is, you understand that it's not about likes or the followers, right? It ultimately boils down to what you're creating on the platform. If your content is great, if it's in the right context, if it's reaching to the right people, and if it's something that is of value to the end user, I don't think you need to run about for likes, followers. Regarding the bot bit, yes, that is a real problem. And as a platform level, I'm sure all of us, we're definitely doing enough and more stuff to ensure that this sort of gets eliminated, that marketers have more tools in their hands to ensure that they're not getting random programmers, codes following them, but actual people. Yeah.
Can I just add one line to that, please? I think you said multiple things in that statement. It would really be great if you could help your partners move the conversation away from likes, because clearly everyone's moving away from there. But having said that, I understand some clients are still having those discussions. There's a difference between saying that a like which is purchased is a fake like, because it's almost like saying that any advertising which is paid for in this country is also fake. The point is simply this: there was a stage when purely everything was organic. We were a much smaller platform. The platform is extremely competitive. We are 112 million people on this platform. To really ensure that you're on that news feed, that you're relevant to someone likes you, it's really working on bid. So I think to equate fake and paid it would be incorrect. But coming to your issue on fake likes, yes, the problem does exist. And honestly, it's a much larger issue for the publisher than probably it is for the advertiser, because like I said, it's really about people experience. It's about the experience that advertisers have with us, the authenticity and trust they believe that we bring in. So there are a lot of efforts that continuously keep going on at our end, where we try to keep weeding out any kind of fake profiles, and there's a very strong lens that we apply to ensure that we really have the most authentic user profiles on the platform. I think we'll take just one last question if there's any. Yep, there it is.
Hi, Sandeep Porwal. I run a company called Virtual Snipers. You know, I've been interesting conversation. I work with a lot of SMEs. Recently started a push to companies which have a turnover of 10 to 25 crores only, right? Great talk, analytics, data. None of this applies to the segment I work with. They don't really understand it the way you do. That's the bottom of the pyramid, right? I've grown from a two-man company to a very decent-sized company with this lot, right? Without social media. Because it's almost next to impossible to sell these guys unless you're talking likes, right? Over the years, as I've belonged, I think digital's been sold very wrongly. So everybody's been talking metrics without understanding metrics, and there's a lot of analytics tools out there which don't apply to any of these small businesses, though they have the propensity to scale actually. They can become a 10 to 25 crore in no time because they are lean, right? They've got talent, they've got a great price advantage, but they are unable to leverage the social platforms because that's the way it's reached out to them, right? So to the panel, in general, I wanted to understand, I mean, you know, what we are talking about is brands, companies, 100 crore, 250 crores, who've got budgets. That's all right. Maybe some part of the middle of the pyramid and mostly top, because all agencies want the big money, and I'm chasing the small guys, right? I really want to understand your perspective on this bottom of the pyramid, which really still is lagging behind, right? And has the great ability to grow. That's really, to me, is something that makes the ecosystem work. Because you have very few bunch of largest clients and a huge number of agencies chasing them, right? I don't want to get into that, but I'd rather educate and take these guys forward and have longish relationships. Most of my clients have been with me for 5 long years, right? And they trust. Most of my clients do not use social media, right? And it's like I said, next to impossible. Thoughts on that, please?
Sure, yeah. Sure. So I think that's a wonderful question, very relevant. What you are saying is absolutely right. I can't disagree with it. The point is that digital is a technology-led medium, right? With any technology-based platform, there's an evolutionary curve. The adoption will always happen at the sort of top of the pyramid because that's where people have the budget, they're willing to experiment more. And when they adopt, that's the stage when you'll have more startups like yourself coming up, more analytics startup, which will try and make it more affordable, more scalable, and more possible for even, say, SMBs or even individuals, right, to use and leverage the power that these tools can provide. So I think it's just a matter of time. I know of companies which are sort of trying to provide this free of cost to SMBs. There are great people in the room who have actually tied up and seeing how can we take this to SMBs in a way in which they can sort of pick it up and take it to their customers. So all I want to say is that it's not as if it's the privilege of a few. It's definitely started with that, but that's with any new technology that happens. It always starts on limited scale and then it scales up because that's how you get the economies of scale.
Adding up to Anubhav, another point I want to make. That is, when you talk of SMEs, one of the SME side is the cooperative banks of this country, who are really opening up to social platforms in a very big way, wherein though the ticket size as per the spend of the marketing budget is slow, but slowly, steadily they are opening up. I think it is a matter of time, maybe in next 1 year's time, you will be finding out it is much more SMEs relying on social platforms, technology-driven market automation platforms than the traditional media. So it's just a matter of time. And to encourage you, the cooperative banks of this country, the big chunk of cooperative banks are really getting big on social media.
But I tend to agree with him. There are marketing mixes and there are parts of business that we also run where social media may not play a role. And I think you need to look at it from the category perspective. So even if you're a small player, but if you're in the fashion space, you know, I think those guys are on social media and benefiting greatly, and they're not spending large amounts of money there. But you may not be in the fashion space, or you may be a small and medium, you know, size business or a brand, and social may not play a role there. So, you know, I think it goes back to what we do internally in terms of the processes, which is doing the marketing plan for the year, looking at certain communication objectives and saying which medium is best suited to deliver this, you know, to the target group that we are talking about. So, for example, there is stuff that we are doing and experimenting with, which we are running on WhatsApp groups today. Despite the fact that, you know, there is no formal brand thing available, because what did it cost me? It costed me a, you know, $15,000 buck smartphone and an intern to run that whole content, you know, that I'm, you know, giving out to that small segment, and we are doing those experiments and running those kind of pilots. So sometimes it's not about per se using the social media, but I think looking at the whole digital technology piece that's available to you to say, okay, how do you facilitate and make a certain process efficient, or to ensure that, you know, either the influencers for their business or the end customers for their business, which may be thousands in number, or maybe, you know, only lakhs in number, and may not run into millions and billions, and social media per se, the Facebook and the Twitter, sorry, but may not play a role there then.
No, I think my questions were misconstrued. What I wanted to understand was your thoughts on how social will reach out to these guys, because it seems to be the domain of the brands who pay money, right? And like the gentleman put it across, cost of likes, which was roughly about ₹1.50 3 years ago, is booming up to $8. You might say it's a great, you know, model, open model, and we are doing it like AdWords, and we are trying to give a bidding strategy. No, I don't think that really works, right?
So, but then, I'll take that. Maybe I'll.
I'm so sorry, but I think there's a way of organically building your likes. And we see pages, we build pages where, of course, PPC is very, very imperative. But there is, if you're doing good dialogue with your customers and standing apart in a different way. And as Diwali said, it's just a standout piece. It's just a small piece. You got to look at the holistic picture. And I'm sure you can engage in a very good way.
Yeah, I think there you should be content with fewer likes, but focus on the customer service and the good content angle. And I think organically the likes will grow. I personally know of a brand who in the last 4 or 5 years has only been on Facebook largely, has grown from being a 40 crore brand to being about a 75, 80 crore brand, only women-centric brand. But you know, they focused only on customer service and only on giving out the right content. They never focused on acquiring fans, but they are acquiring fans at a fast pace eventually.
But interesting analytics pieces like the ones we are talking about here are not accessible to them, primarily because of price points.
I just want to cut in and... with due respect to law of analytics, right? I mean, it's great. I'm a person, I follow a little more simpler approach. We have lots already on the platform. And I think to the larger room, I'll just search, probably whenever you get time today, just go to facebook.com/help. There's a window that opens up, and it's a prompt. So you can just say, how do I create an ad? It's as simple as that. My question would be, how many of us have just really understood that realm? And I'll come to the point that you're trying to make, but a couple of larger points. Publishers are really thinking about SMBs. They are not bottom of the pyramid, they are our priority. It's just that they are managed in a very different way. There's a much more scaled approach that we use to manage them. So that's one. Two, because we have a lot of SMB clients, and I'll give you 2, 3 examples, right? You spoke about fashion. There are a lot of small real estate, you know, clients that are also available. There are doctors that are available. They all want to be on Facebook, and we often advise them that it is a very great do-it-yourself platform. So the platform, in a way, has been brought to speed to talk very simply, to get people to just understand what kind of ad should I create. I don't want to talk to the universe. You mentioned about spray and pray, right? Everybody in India, females 15 plus, is not relevant to my dentist who is at Khar. What's relevant to her is probably just maybe Bombay, maybe Parla, maybe Khar. Can that kind of targeting be given to you? A. And can it be easily understood to be executed by that person? B. Both of them is possible on a lot of social platforms today.
Sure.
So yes, I think it's great to want those big data analytics for your clients. I think there's a lot that's still sitting inherently on the platforms today, which is making a huge business case for SMBs. We have seen a lot of success with SMB clients. Till some time back, Chumbak was one of our biggest SMB case study that we had. And we continue to see SMB business grow. My request is still, let's just dig deeper into those platforms. A lot of those relevant insights are right there waiting for you, which are very actionable.
In the wake of native analytics, what's the need for all these tools then? Because you guys are going to scale up, you guys are going to get better insights, right? Then what would you define the need? And especially the question is to you is, why do you think tools which are externally available we required at all to monitor Facebook?
So I don't think that...
Can I take that? So it's not a question of just monitoring Facebook or Twitter or XYZ,
One of the
right?
platforms.
So the point is that what Mark and everybody in the panel sort of emphasized earlier, which is you have to look at it in totality, right? It's the same consumer going across. You can't just afford to monitor just one platform and say that, hey, all my consumers are here because I've invested in getting X number of likes and I'm going to monitor them only, right? And it's not just about platforms, it's not just about social or digital, it's about your whole organization and looking at it from that. So you look inward out, see what matters to you, what's your business objective, and where can you get the data for it. If you need to get likes or followers or whatever, then go get them. But the question you need to ask is, do I really need that, right? And that's more fundamental than how should I go about it, what tool, what platform, all that can fall in place.
So surely then we are only saying that all you're doing is aggregating a host of data from various platforms and presenting it in an analyzed manner, which could otherwise have been done individually by monitoring each platform, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example. Do you have time?
Especially from a small business perspective, I'm just trying to make it clear.
One example, 5 years back, I was running a startup, and we obviously didn't, the same place as you, didn't have enough money to put into analytics, BI, predictive, whatever tool. So we used to use search.twitter.com and get all the tracking you wanted to do over there, right? Today you can have a tool to do that, or you can put 10 people and do that yourself, right? So that's the thing. And we're sitting in India, man. I mean, there are ways and means to get things done without having to go for it. Yeah.
To add on to a point to Anupam, you need to decide the metrics or maybe the analytics that what exactly is your business goal. To achieve your business goal, your analytics should be able to help you to take an action. So it is again depending on you or maybe the business owner or maybe the so-called SME. If they are having a need for it, then definitely they need to embrace the platform. Analytics comes secondary. First, you need to understand, you need to decide your business objectives. Then only all those metrics or maybe analytics comes.
I really do think we're running extremely over time, but I think our panel is going to be here to have a lot more conversation, probably over a cup of coffee. Thanks a lot to all of you for being a really patient audience. We love the questions. Thanks to all of you as well. And Dipali, our meeting's on for Monday. We're discussing budgets here. Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys.